Hello everyone, it's Shane Kanto, your Wasteland reviewer, and I'm here to review Lion, which I got to see last weekend, and one of the last films of 2016 that I'm probably going to get to see in theaters. Now, this film is about a young boy who gets lost from his family in India and winds up being adopted, and then later in life he tries to find his original family using Google Earth. So, I quite enjoyed this film, and I really wanted to see it because it is up for Best Picture at the Academy Awards this year. And my short opinion, don't think it's Best Picture worthy, but I did really enjoy this film. And starting off with Garth Davis, who is the director, he really put together a very interesting story. Visually, it was fantastic to look at, and especially since looking down on the earth and scenery and stuff like that is so important to this film. The cinematography was actually pretty gorgeous, and the story was balancing a couple of different time periods, and they told it in different kinds of ways, and it felt very much like two different stories though, and I felt like it could have been a little smoother, but overall Garth Davis I think did a pretty good job of putting this film together. It was well paced. I don't believe I felt bored at all watching this film around 2 hours. Some of the other things, so Luke Davies wrote the screenplay for this film, and it's based off of an autobiography by Suru, the young man in this film. In terms of storytelling, I was much more compelled with the first half of the film, which was him being lost as a young child and trying to find his family and finding his way. The second half of the film felt a little more, I guess, pedestrian and not as interesting as the first half of the film. And I didn't feel as well connected with some of the characters, and they weren't really fleshed out in terms of some of the characters for this film. And I guess to segue into talking about some of the acting and the characters, Siru, played by Sunny Pawar when he was a young boy, was fantastic. He was so adorable and charming, and I really liked his performance. Unfortunately, some of the dialogue he had written for him sounded so not realistic at all. It sounded not like something a kid would say, which really put me off with parts of this film. And there's some parts in the earlier half of the film that didn't make much sense to me. I honestly don't know if the cultural thing, because I've never been to India, and how some of the people in these cities reacted to seeing this young man lost was a little off-putting to me, but I'm not going to hold that against the film in case it was some kind of cultural thing that I didn't understand. But once he grows up, Dev Patel does a good job in this film, and he is not a supporting character. Sorry, Academy Awards. Dev Patel does put on a good performance, but when it really came down to it, I didn't like Saru very much in the second half of the film, especially when he was adult. He seemed very selfish and misguided and unappreciative of the life that he had, and it made me a little put off because this is his story and trying to follow him through the story. Some of the other performances, Nicole Kidman's up for an Oscar. She had a very small part in this film as Saru's mother, adopted mother, and she had some strong emotional scenes, but I don't know if she's like Oscar worthy to really be taking that up, but I think she did a really nice job. David Wenham, Faramir from Lord of the Rings, played his adopted father, which really didn't have much to do. He was kind of an afterthought, which I felt like, which that could have been. He might not have been as close with Saber when he was growing up or as an adult, but I felt like he was kind of like forgotten in this whole thing. And then he has another adopted brother, which they glimpsed over that so quickly to introduce that. I felt a little jarring. And then Rooney Mara, who plays his girlfriend, doesn't have much to do, to be perfectly honest, and is kind of just there. It's like, hey, I have a girlfriend, kind of thing. So some of the characters weren't well developed. And the thing is, this is based off of a true story, but I am looking at this from a film perspective. Uh, In terms of the music was fantastic. I was actually really, really happy hearing the music in this film, and I've actually listened to it after I've watched the film, and I thought it did a fantastic job of really building things up. Overall, this was definitely an above average film and very well made. It wasn't didn't connect with me as much, and I didn't connect with Seru as much, and didn't feel for him as much as I would have liked to. I really loved the first part of this film when he was a young man for the most part, but as the film progressed, I kind of lost some interest and connection with him, and it made it hard to connect with like frantic, like felt like an investigative story with him like going through Google Earth, which that's what actually happened, but wasn't exactly the most exciting thing to having like montages watching in a film. I'm gonna give Lion a solid B grade. I would definitely suggest going to see it as it is a Best Picture nominee, and if you're really into film, I think it would be worth for you to see. I think it was well done film, and I would suggest seeing Lion.